Hello friends, it's Cindy Brumbaugh from CindyLeeBDesigns.com, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. I will have a disclaimer, we're having construction at our house right now, and some of that is including some shelving for my stamping supplies in the extra room. So if we hear anybody talking or we hear some noise, I'm going to try to get this done. It's been a busy last weekend and beginning of the week. We're just having a lot of things going on. But so please excuse the chaos around us. But we're going to be using the Around the Bend dies, the Petal Park Punch, with the Petal Park stamp set and the Stitched Greenery dies, and we are making a sampler. I'm using a 9x9 frame. I get these online through Michaels, and they come in black, distressed gray, and white. This one I decided to use the Dandy Designs Designer Series paper here with the fresh Freesia color. So when I start a 9x9 frame, I like to start my base of my sampler at 9x9. Now we do sell the 12x12 in the color families, so you're able to get those. But if you don't, just put a little strip of maybe a 1 inch around your do an 8.5 by 8.5, put a strip around it, tape it on the back, and then trim it down to what you need. And then that way you'll still see maybe the demarcation line on there, but it'll look like you did it purposefully. And you may come up with a better idea than that as well. So when I do that 9x9, I bring down my next piece to 8 1/4. So that gives me a nice border here that I can see through on the frame. And I have a picture of that. It'll be on my blog along with all the measurements and the products I use underneath the YouTube description, but also on my blog, CindyLeeBDesigns.com. You can press the link underneath the YouTube description. It'll take you right over there for additional photos and tips over there. So 9x9 is the first one. Then we went down to the black, and that was 8 1/4 inch square. And then my DSP went down to an 8 inch square. So that 8x8 cutting out of a 12x12 left me a nice 4 inch piece here and a 4 inch piece at the bottom, perfect for putting on cards. And we did use those extra pieces. So then this black piece, then I wanted to show a nice amount of this beautiful checked gingham here. And I made this black here 5 3/4, 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 a square. And then I brought down the focal point down to 5 1/2. So I'm going to show you how we put this together. So I'm going to set this aside here, and we are going to bring all of our pieces back here. Okay, so we see all the pieces I built up there. Now I have I'm going to have these on as a cheat sheet here for you on my blog. You'll see pictures of this. But the first thing I did was I started out with a 3x9 piece of white or whatever color you're going to do, you want to do. I put these beautiful leafy blooms here. So what I did is I put 2 of them on here. So I just took my die and I ran it through. And I had these drawn out for my girls because it just showed them how they could fit everything onto theirs. And of course, we were doing a product class, so we could do, and I put a white flower there. And I did a leaf here. And then I do see that I needed to poke out this leaf here. So, and now I can save this for a template for myself. So all of these dies came from the Around the Bend dies. So we end up with our leaf, our flower, and another leaf that we're going to use on there. And then we just turn this and roll it around twice, and we get 2 sets of leaves to go under the whole sampler. So that was, and that, like I said, that picture will be on the blog post. So now you see I have all my pieces cut and ready to go on my sampler. So that's piece number 1, and that is going to go under. So I start out here, and I'm not going to put it all together at this point right now because of my time issue. So I'm going to show you how we did this. I just took a piece of fun foam. I just happen to have a pink. Put that down as one big, huge dimensional. and that just saved me from having to use a ton of them. I just put a piece of fun foam down there. I glued my 5 3/4 inch square there, and then we are going to, and you'll see how I just pop these under here, and one on this side. So there, we've got some. Now we need to build up that focal point in the middle. Okay, and we're going to do that with, we have this piece here, and this piece is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. So that's going to go on the bottom of this focal point, and then we're going to put something up here on the top. And when we do that top portion, this is my little trick here. You're going to be putting this purple underneath this die cut that has like the little kind of like, reminds me of champagne bubbles here. But we need to stamp this image here, die cut with the scallop, and then do the same thing. Now my little trick with that is I took a piece of, now I'm going to set this aside a second here, there we go. So I took a piece of 3 by 6 of the fresh Freesia, and then I am going to get my stamp, and you know I cannot, I have one of these that's bigger than this, and I cannot find it in my stamp. Oh, I just did. That's going to make life a lot easier. Okay. I was thinking I had to have it here, so I brought out that big one. It just about fits on here. A little bit hangs over on the side. But what you're going to do is take that 3 by 6 piece, and it's going to be stamped close to the bottom, but leave yourself enough room for the die, the scallop die. So what we're going to do is, my camera is, let me see here if I can get it a little straighter. There we go. So here we go. Whatever could go wrong will go wrong whenever you've got all your irons in the fire, huh? So we're just going to ink up that real pretty scallop line there. Okay. And then we are just going to, we want to have as much of it on the paper as we can. So I just kind of eyeballed it and just said, okay, it looks like that's on, and stamp. And I don't have a foam mat under here, so hopefully this is going to stamp okay. There we go. And I just see a tiny bit of, get my basic black. I just see a little bit that I can fill in here. And I think that's because I didn't have my foam. So I'm just going to make that a little bit straighter here. Fill in that little edge and make it nice. And this is going to be actually coming off here, because I made this piece 3 by 6. Now the reason I made it 3 by 6, I think I might fill in these little circles a little bit, that I made it 3 by 6 is you're trying to match up the two curves, okay? So we have this one, and then this one, we start out with 2 1/2 by 6, and we're going to cut it down to 5 1/2. They get cut down to 5 1/2. So if we're going to cut them down, we want to be able to wiggle them so that we can move it around. Like you'll see here, like see a little bit is off here, but we want to make sure that we cover these so we can actually cut down. So you start with a little bit more, and then we have the margin to be able to cut it off. So what we're going to do is take this piece that's 2 1/2 by 6 here, and we're going to cut it. So we're going to take this fun die here, and it fits just like on your 2 by 6, okay? So we'll show you, we did that. Oh, you know what, and then I'm going to run this through. You can take a look at our pretty sampler while I run this through. There was no way to kind of, I mean, I guess I could have had it already done, but I'm just going to show you how I ran it through. And it's just deciding to be a little ornery here for me and not stay in place. Okay, put my plate on here and roll it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. There we go. And all right, so I pull it and you'll see that it, you know, has a little leeway on there too. And I should just open that little guy up there. And we did use our die brush when we did this, but I'm just gonna pop out these couple extra little circles, and we will be ready to go. So because we have that leeway there, before I glue this, adhere it onto here, I'm gonna go ahead and do my stamping in case I messed up. So now we're gonna stamp "You Are a Blessing" at the top of this, okay? So we're going to take that stamp and we're gonna ink it up with our Memento Black. And we're gonna put, it has a nice curve there. You are a blessing. This would be a nice gift just to have on hand to give as a thank you or just a reminder to somebody. So we have this now. We want to cut our scallop here, and that's another die that's found in the around the bend. And we're gonna pop that onto our die cut machine. I'm using my magnetic plate, and it's really an effective tool for keeping that in place, but you can use some little Post-its to keep your die in place. And we will run it through here, and I think the crew has just arrived, so if you hear some talking, that is who is coming in. So there we go, we have our die cut. Now we're going to adhere this, and when we adhere this, I'm going to grab a little here and put Alejandro. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to just, now we can make sure that our curves are matching. You see that curve there? See how those curves match? But notice I'm off on the one side, but that's okay because I started with 6. So then I just go over to my machine and I just cut down. So I'm going to, maybe I should show you actually with my little, on my trimmer. Now I can just do this. Okay, I was just trimming that up there and I got a little bit of an edge here, and I had a little bit of purple coming off the side here. And I just heard my grandson wake up too. So there we've got "You Are a Blessing." And then we just pop this right on to the top of here and it matches up. Look at that. So start with your 6, get it all put together, trim it down. And if you need to trim a little bit off of here, you have plenty of room here to play around with that. So you've got that prettiness there. Then you stamp your outlines from the Petal Park. You do the outline of this flower here in black, and you use the solid part in Fresh Freesia and stamp on top of it, and you've got these pretty flowers that you can now punch out with the Petal Park punch. And you just get those little guys in there, those little girls, let's say. I don't know, my husband loves flowers. So here we go, and I bet a lot of guys love flowers. So here we go, we've got our flowers, and you can see here that I built up my flowers, but I'm going to show you how I did this one too. That one is simply done with this die as well, with this die, and I started out with a 2.5 by 5, 2.5 by 5, and put it on so that I could see some of the small leaves on the one side. And all these photos will be on my blog, so that if you would like to replicate this, you can easily cut the measurements and be able to, and here's my piece here, you would be able to have that. The reason I cut it to 2.5 by 5 is it gave me a nice, when you cut it exactly the way you see with it up here on a 2.5 by 5 with a leaf here and up here, you're gonna have a nice like horizon down there. I did it a couple times to get the perfect amount of like a hill to build my flowers on. So, oh my gosh, I hear that little guy down there. I put him down for his little nap. If there's like anything more I can do, like multitasking, throw it my way. So here we go. We've got this pretty fresh freesia little mountain there. And then I just built up my flowers. Like I just used, you know, I just laid them down. I played around with them and saw which way I liked it, and added some white in, added in some black when I wanted a little bit more of a you know, pop. And you can just do anything you want with this, just building it up and playing around. I use some of the matte black dots. And there you go. So simple. Just think if you're making a big card. Just think that you're making a bigger card and you're using all these fun dies. And just go by the pictures that I have on my blog post of the measurements that you would use to make, to do the different pieces, and you'll have that same focal point, excuse me, that I have on mine. So a 9 by 9 frame, the white was 9 by 9. We went down to black at 8.25 inch square. Then our DSP was an 8-inch square. Our focal point with the black frame was a 5 3/4. And then we brought this down to the 5 1/2 width because we wanted to, we cut, remember these two pieces, we started out with 6 inches, and then we stamped, we die cut, we laid this on top of that pretty scallop there. And by doing that with that scallop, we were able then to trim down to 5 1/2. So if you end up like, say you're like, see this one is not on the paper, but like the last one I did was a little bit more on this side. So you're able to measure, you're able to line up the curves and then just trim off. So you have 6 inches, so you have a lot to work with on both sides. Okay, there you go for that. So just if you start out with these measurements, I kind of gave you a jump start on making that. So the small leaves on the bottom there, and there is a picture of this, and I threw some little white flowers there, and then I just built up some funsies on the bottom there, and then you just pop that into a frame. And let me show you here how. Here's our one that we're gonna make, and you know, I'm gonna finish that off, but I'm gonna show you how pretty this looks in the frame. So you just turn it over. In this frame, there's like a little ledge in there. I put it in there, pop this in, and technically with this frame, I wouldn't have to put the white, but I didn't like this cream color against what I was doing. But you could build right on this piece. However, if you don't build on that piece, you can make and change out your samplers for different seasons, different things like, and there you have that sampler in the black. Here's one I made, last Valentine's Day I made this one, and see, I can just keep popping, and I think this one went into a white frame, and you really saw the white in there. So that is some fun things you can do with these 9 by 9 frames. Get them online, and using Around the Bend and our Petal Park bundles, and that Dandy Designs Fresh Freesia pattern in that DSP while celebration's still going on. For a $100 order, you can get that. There's been new items added to the lineup as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call, 724-323-2296, or email me at cindyleeb@gmail.com. If you subscribe to my blog, cindyleebdesigns.com, you will get notified when I post. That email notification comes from WordPress. the blog server. So you can comment on that on my blog, but if you have a personal question, make sure you use my personal email, cindyleeb@gmail.com. And if you can't get me one way, you'll get me another way. Thanks for buzzing by, friends.